Now, your host, Ken Broo, on News Radio 700 WLW.
Welcome back to the show. Glad you're with us. Ken Broo here, you there, and that's what makes it all happen. Did you know that by the year 2030, which is not all that far away, what is that? Let's see, I went to Ohio University. That's 11 years. By the year 2030, automated bots could take nearly 4 in 10 jobs. 38%, actually, according to a report that is just out. And it's because of a global shift to artificial intelligence. A global shift to artificial intelligence could mean that 38% of us may not have a job or better learn other job skills between now and 2030. Somebody that knows all about this is standing by on the AcuteHearingCenters.com hotline. He is an international corporate speaker, cross-culture catalyst. Man, I'd love to be one of those. And has served as cultural diplomat for the United States Department of State. He is Ravi Singh. And he joins us now live here on 700 WLW. And Ravi, how are you on this glorious Saturday? How you doing?
I'm great, Ken. How are you?
Well, I'm great, too, that you've joined me. Now, 4 in 10, 38% is the actual number. Jobs could be out of here by 2030, and robots or automation or AI could be taking the place of those 38% of the people that are working now. Is it all menial labor that we're talking about? People that work in fast food restaurants or things like that, or does it extend past that?
You know, I think that's some of the more obvious ones probably, but I think it extends way past that. I mean, when we look at even jobs like coding, and we talk about coding being the future, AI is more capable of coding with more accuracy and more speed probably than a human being. So that could be one of the first things to go, even though we don't think of that as being a job that could be replaced.
Well, that's frightening. Yeah, it's frightening when you think about it, though. I mean, if you're somebody who's of the age of, say, I don't know, 35, by the time you're 46, pushing 50, you might be out on the street.
Yeah, if you don't become and figure out ways to stay relevant and to pivot in your own career, that could be a reality. And certainly from an educational standpoint, when we look at people that are just graduating high school, going into college, that whole landscape by the time they graduate from college or get a master's degree or whatever it is, that whole landscape completely changes.
Let's talk then a little bit about this, because it seems like, and maybe this is just because of the time we live in right now, maybe this has happened throughout the course of humanity, but it seems like the need now is to re-educate, to retrain, to think ahead. And that's a very difficult thing for someone, as again, I'll go back to the age of 35, to do, because all of a sudden now you've got to learn new things, and the world that you learned is not the world that you know. And I'm just wondering how difficult you think that will be for the general man or woman right now to say to themselves, in 11 years, I better be doing something else here than what I'm doing now. It's frightening, but how do you meet that challenge if you're someone like that could be exposed to something like this?
Well, I think you're right in saying that this is not necessarily something new. I mean, this has always been the case where things do change, and we've had great technology advancements over the years. But what we have to recognize is that it's happening at a faster rate. So therefore, people have to pivot. That's the word I always use. I think it's so relevant. I'm writing a book called Pivot, because we have to be able to pivot multiple times through our lives. The director of the Lab of Aging for Harvard Medical School says the first person who lived to 150 has already been born. So imagine over the course of 100 years of productive life, how many times you're going to have to pivot. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you have to be a lifelong learner. You've got to be curious. You have to be constantly engaging yourself and learning about things that you don't know. And that enables you to become a person that can learn on the job and that has the courage and willingness to try new things. It's
just when you were answering that question, it dawned on me that if you're under a certain age, I think, if you're under the age of 40, I'm not sure you have a career. I mean, I've noticed that the days of working, for example, in this city, the big employer is Procter & Gamble. If you're the days of working for Procter & Gamble and being the quote-unquote corporate guy and rising through the various ranks to whatever level you can get to, and staying 25, 30, 35 years and getting the gold watch, and that's it. Goodbye. Thanks for for playing along. I think those days are done. I notice more and more younger people are not staying on the jobs and building careers. They're going to go to a job that's either more intellectually challenging or certainly more financial rewarding, but not necessarily sticking around and working for one company. So maybe, and again, this is a roundabout way of asking the question, Ravi, maybe because of that, this is going to be less of a traumatic experience for younger people in their mid to upper 20s. I'm just guessing here, but without careers, you're not necessarily tied to one line of thinking.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, this is a generation. This is the most entrepreneurial generation we've ever seen. This is a gig economy, and certainly they approach it that way, jumping from one job to another. And again, if they're going to live 150 years, it's just going to take them longer to figure out what they want to do for a longer amount of time. But companies, too, have to pivot, and that's what's happening. I write a lot about it in my blog at RaviUnites.com, where they have to do this. And in the process of pivoting, the companies themselves, it means the employees have to redefine what their role is if they're going to stay in those companies. And a lot of times they can't, which is what makes them move from place to place.
By the way, what is a cross-culture catalyst? How do I become one of those? Is there something out there I can do to make myself a cross-culture catalyst? Or is that something you came up with?
Well, yeah, it's something that I came up with. I don't know if it's a job title, but if there's one person out there that has it, it's me, right? And it's basically, I spend a lot of time working with people from different cultures, and my background is as a musician, and I bring them together through music. And I've done projects in Iraq, Lebanon, Indonesia, bringing people from traditionally opposed cultures and religions together through music. Because, as you know, we have so much polarization around the world and right here in America, and I just don't believe it's necessary. And that's part of what this new generation believes, too. They're very organic in their ways of defeating social injustice.
I love music, too. Are you familiar with, by the way, this song here, Ravi? I don't know whether you are or not. You know these guys?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Vaguely familiar.
Yeah. These guys are from Tulsa. I worked in Tulsa about 150 years ago. This is Hanson, of course, is the group. You were the guitarist for Hanson, right?
I was back in the day when we were tearing it up in 1997, #1 on the Billboard charts. It was an amazing experience and one of the first millennial bands on the planet, too. Yeah. So that's where a lot of my education on this generation came from the Hanson days.
Yeah. So what was that like being on the stage with Hanson? You guys played everywhere. You played the White House, Madison Square Garden. You were hot. They had a lot of big hits, and here you are up on the stage. How old were you? Maybe like 23, 24?
Yeah, I was the old guy in the band at that time. So I was in my early 20s, and it was great. I was living the dream. They're three of the nicest guys I ever met. It's great when success happens to people that really deserve it, and so talented. And we got to do everything that a musician would dream of wanting to do. And for me, I often say being in Hanson was like going to Harvard Business School of rock and roll.
Yeah, but you didn't. What happened after Hanson? Did you play anywhere else, or was that it? And you just decided you were going to go, have a real life and a real job?
Well, no, I was always a songwriter and a studio guy, and it was unusual for me. Actually, it was a departure to join a band like Hanson, but it was so interesting because at the end of that, in the late '90s, of course, the internet came up. And it changed the whole dynamics of the music industry. And the music industry, amongst other industries, collapsed in this sharing economy. And we all had to figure it out and find different ways to do it. So, I'm really proud of what I do today with music as a cultural diplomat for the State Department, creating these songwriting camps to put together people from different
it's phenomenal. Ravi Hudasing is our guest. By the way, are you currently with the State Department, or was that something that was under another administration?
Well, I was funded under another administration, but I'm remaining optimistic that the funding will come back. They basically serve as a client of mine to fund my programs that meet their cultural diplomacy mandates.
Quite the heritage too. You're the grandnephew of India's first Prime Minister Nehru, the grandnephew of Indira Gandhi. Wow. Why? I mean, so you got royalty in your blood. You played for Hanson. And now you're trying to save jobs 11 years out in the future.
Ken, go figure. If we're going to tell people that they have to pivot,
Yeah.
Who's better than me to talk about it, right?
Right. No, I'm just saying. But it's, we can scare people and say, hey, in 11 years, the job you got isn't going to exist. You're going to be out on the street or whatever. But is there something that someone should be learning right now who might have? I'm not even going to limit it to 30 more years in the workforce or whatever. Anybody at this point that is somehow, some way caught up in trying to earn money for a living, is there one skill set that someone should be working on at this point that might help prevent them being just a statistic in 11 or 12 years?
I think the most important thing we can all do, which is sort of explains the different things I've done in my life, is we have to stay curious. And as long as we maintain our curiosity about the world and people we interact with, we become lifelong learners. And that does give us that ability to pivot. And I think it's that simple because we really don't know where things are going to be in the next 10 years. We don't know what those jobs of the future are, and we don't necessarily know what skills are going to be required. But if we're lifelong learners and we stay curious, then we're able to learn. And to learn those skills and stay relevant.
So stay curious, keep your antenna up, don't be intellectually dull, and just try and figure out that just because you're somewhere right now doesn't mean you're going to be there in another year or 2, 3 years or whatever, that you can always change and, as you say, pivot into something else that might be not just financially rewarding, but something that can really help define who you are and where you've been as you walk this earth. How about that?
Well,
that you could use that in one of your seminars, Ravi.
Well, there you go. But I mean, look, who knows it better than you? You've been in sports for a long time, right?
Right.
And we know that a lot of sports guys, a lot of athletes, they got to figure out and think ahead about what they're going to do when they retire because they have second careers.
Right. No,
So,
you're dead on. Absolutely. You're dead on.
So that's very similar, and it's just now that issue is now expanding to all industries.
Well, you're easily the most diverse person I've had on this radio show in the 15 years I've been doing it, and you teach songwriting through DVDs and things like that. I may run out and get 1, 2, 3 songwriting, which has been out here for the last 5 or 6 years, because I'm in awe of anybody that can put words and music together. Ravi, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they want to see your blog, and you mentioned a book that's coming out that I think you said you're going to call Pivot. How do they get a hold of you?
So the best way to find me is at RaviUnites.com. That's RaviUnites.com, because that's what I'm trying to do, unite people. And then on all social media as well, the handle is Ravi Unites.
Yeah, Ravi Hoodie Singh, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck. I hope we can do this again sometime.
I would love to, Ken, anytime.
Right. Thank you, Ravi. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
There's a guy, not only is he from royalty in India, guy comes to the United States, 20 years old, he's playing guitar for the hottest group in the 90s. But he's right about this, and we're right about this too, and it's unfortunate, but AI is going to take over a lot of jobs here in the next 10 years. Don't be a stat. Figure out if you're going to be exposed, and if you are, figure out what you want to do. It's never too late to learn. Get that antenna up. Get it up. It's coming up on 123. Ken Broo, Saturday afternoons, you and me on News Radio 700 WLW.